Today, we are diving deep into one of the most incredible goals in all of human history, the search for physical immortality. And this quest is going to take us straight into the fascinating world of religious Taoism, a faith built on the absolutely radical idea that death itself wasn't an end, it was just an obstacle to be overcome.
I mean, really think about that for a second. Not just your soul going to some afterlife, but your actual physical body living forever. For the ancient practitioners of religious Taoism, this wasn't some fantasy. It was a very real, tangible goal, the total and complete transcendence of death as we know it.
Okay, so right off the bat, it's super important to make a distinction. You've probably heard of philosophical Taoism, right? The teachings of Lao Tzu, living in harmony with the way, go with the flow, that kind of thing. But what we're talking about today is something else entirely. This is religious Taoism, a full-on institutionalized faith with gods, scriptures, rituals, the whole shebang. And it has one central, absolutely wild objective: to achieve physical immortality. And this quest was, well, it was unique. So many other religions were focused on where the soul goes after you die. But religious Taoism was way more ambitious. They were aiming for the preservation of the physical body, the survival of the entire person. The whole point of this quest was to become what's known as a Xian, an immortal. The practitioners, these adepts, truly believed that with the right techniques and just an unshakable amount of faith, they could literally transform their bodies into vessels that would never, ever die. So how in the world did they try to do this? Well, the first path they took was called outer alchemy. And honestly, you've got to admire the guts. It was this bold, almost defiant attempt to wrestle the very secrets of creation away from nature itself. The main method here was to create an actual physical potion, an elixir of immortality. You had alchemists working in labs, trying to transmute minerals like cinnabar, which is a mercury ore, into a magical substance that could grant eternal life. But look, these elixirs weren't some nice, gentle herbal remedies. Oh no, they were often literal cocktails of potent poisons. The adepts had this really dangerous paradox at the heart of their belief. To conquer death, you had to harness its most powerful agents. They thought that these incredibly toxic, life-destroying substances actually held the secret to eternal life. And this brings us to the absolutely incredible story of a legendary alchemist named Wei Po Yang. His tale just perfectly captures the kind of absolute, unwavering faith you needed to walk down this incredibly dangerous path. So, after perfecting his elixir, Wei Po Yang knew it was time for the ultimate test. He gathered his disciples up in the mountains and, for his very first test subject, he chose his loyal dog. The result? It was immediate and looked pretty catastrophic. The dog drank the potion and just fell over dead on the spot. You can just imagine his disciples looking on in horror, thinking it was a complete and total failure. But Wei Po Yang's belief was just unshakable. He turned to his disciples and said, "To die of the elixir is no worse than living without having found it." I mean, wow. For him, dying while trying to become immortal was way better than just giving up. So with his faith totally intact, he drank the elixir himself.
But Wei Poyang's belief was just unshakable. He turned to his disciples and said, "To die of the elixir is no worse than living without having found it." I mean, wow. For him, dying while trying to become immortal was way better than just giving up. So, with his faith totally intact, he drank the elixir himself and fell to the ground, apparently dead.
Seeing this, only one of his disciples was loyal enough, or maybe brave enough, to follow his master. He drank the elixir and, you guessed it, he also died. The others, well, they took off to go find some coffins, but, and here's the twist, as soon as they were gone, Wei Poyang, his follower, and, yep, even the dog, all revived. They hadn't actually died. They had just shed their mortal forms to become true immortals, true Xian. What a story.
Now, as you can imagine, not every alchemist was as, let's say, successful as Wei Poyang. The very real, very final danger of dying from poison led a lot of practitioners down a completely different path, one that turned away from external potions and instead looked inward. This was called inner alchemy.
So here, the focus just completely shifted. Instead of mixing potions, the goal was to use the body's own substances and energies to forge what they called an immortal embryo, basically a new transcendent self that was grown from within.
The key to this whole practice is a concept you've probably heard of, Qi. That's the vital life force that's believed to flow through everything in the universe, including our own bodies. Inner alchemists were trying to master the flow of this energy, convinced it was the key to forging their own immortality.
To do this, they basically mapped out the body's key energy centers. They pinpointed 3 main cinnabar fields, and you can hear the echo of outer alchemy in that name. You had these fields in the head, the chest, and the abdomen, and these became the sort of internal laboratories for their spiritual work.
Through really intense meditation and visualization, these adepts would guide their qi through these 3 fields, creating this amazing self-sustaining loop of energy called the microcosmic orbit. The idea was that by circulating and refining this life force over and over, they could concentrate it and basically grow it into the seed of a new immortal self.
But this personal quest for immortality didn't just happen in a bubble. It was all part of a complete and really complex religious system, one that offered not just a path for the individual, but a path of salvation for all of its followers. When you get down to it, religious Taoism operates a lot like other major world religions. It sees humanity as being in a fallen state, and it provides a whole structured path with rituals, ethics, celestial beings to guide believers toward a happy, blissful eternity. And at the very top of their celestial food chain is a trinity known as the 3 Pure Ones. These guys are the supreme deities who govern all of cosmic time. You have the primal celestial one, who represents the past, the precious celestial one, who's in charge of the present, and then a deified version of Lao Tzu himself, who is seen as the master of the future, guiding everyone toward enlightenment. And believe me, this was a deeply scholarly tradition. Over 1,500 years, religious Taoism produced this enormous collection of scriptures called the Taoism. We're talking about a canon with over 1,000 volumes, filled with everything from divine revelations to really precise alchemical formulas. So, while the idea of a literal elixir of life might sound like something out of ancient history, the spiritual and physical explorations of these Taoist adepts have left behind this profound legacy that is very, very much alive today. Just think about it for a second. The way the inner alchemists mapped the body's energy pathways, that laid the groundwork for acupuncture and the whole theory of meridians. The practice of cultivating qi evolved into disciplines like qigong, and their deep, deep knowledge of natural substances became a cornerstone of herbal medicine. So many of the wellness practices we have today have direct roots in these ancient pursuits. In the end, the Taoists really gave us 2 very different paths to cheat death. You had the high-risk, high-reward gamble of the outer elixir, or the disciplined, lifelong inner journey. So it kind of leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to ponder. If you were trying to transcend your mortal limits, which path would you take?